Welcome back to your Body Thrive book club. It's exciting for me to see that, something that started as a way of just working with my clients became eventually a way of helping people that wanted to learn more Ayurveda, bring what they're learning into their families and into their communities, and then became a course, and then became a book, and is now a book club. So that's been the evolution. And you might just kind of see all these different habits and where you're at in this process as a way of orienting your life now, like who you are now. And I just want to say, like, from experience of working with these 10 habits over the last 15 years with other people, what I found is that the habits themselves are non-negotiable. Like we can try to negotiate around them and say, like, oh, I don't really have to eat an early or later dinner. I don't really have to I can go to bed at midnight and feel fine tomorrow. Or I can, not open my awareness to a bigger perspective, or I don't have to be that connected to what I'm putting in my mouth and my connection with the earth. But it's at certain levels of consciousness, we start to desire more, like more depth, more integration, more connectivity, more interconnectivity, more integrity in our bodies, more integrity in our relationships. And at that point, the habits start to become more and more important. They become the bedrock for the rest of our daily, rhythm. So at that point too, or at this point too, I also want to say it's not so important that you're nailing these habits. It's really not about that. It's just starting to experiment, to explore. You'll see in the book, it's in the very, very first part of the book, I say, it's a good idea to keep going through these habits again and again and again until they become automated. And that if this is your first sweep with them, a lot of this is just noticing. Sometimes it's noticing, honestly, like how far we are from this mark, right? From where the yogis and the Vaidyas or the Ayurvedic sages say we should be, like what we should be doing. And we might notice, like, wow, I really was not raised with these habits, not just in my home life, but for me, I went through primary education, secondary education, college, a great college, studying abroad. And it wasn't until I decided to study Ayurveda that I was able to learn more deeply about these particular habits, and why they were so important. So if that's your path and you're starting to learn about these 10 habits and you're beating yourself up for not doing them perfectly, stop doing that. Don't do that. And just start to get really curious about what you can do right now, what has been working for you so far in your book club group, in your experience of this book, and just putting positive energy into that, putting reinforcing energy into that, and getting really curious too about, like, hey, how would I feel if I took this really seriously? What I know from reading all that the members of past Body Thrive groups have shared with me, what I know from my yoga health coaching students who all have to go through this program, and many of them go through it multiple times. We've got people that have gone through it over 6 times now, is that their lives just keep getting better on all levels. Like, not just the physical quality of the tissue, what I call the fabric of your physiology, right? Not just strength or depth of sleep or having the right body weight, having good muscle integrity, having great elimination, great digestion, not just that, although that's big. I mean, it really is big to have breakthroughs in the body. I don't want it all to downplay that. But there's some deeper things that happen, that it's like yes and, the body and the connection to intuition, the trust. We start to trust in our insights more, our intuition more. We start to see the little things that we do, maybe it's the little things we say yes to when we're getting an inner no, or the things we say no to when we're getting an inner yes. We start to be able to see this stuff, and it becomes more transparent. And to me, that's really what the yogis were talking about, or have been talking about for millennia, is that the subtle body starts to become more transparent. And we have words for this in yoga, like the chakras, right? The nadis, the shrotas and Ayurveda, these subtle energy channels that start to become a lot more obvious once energy's flowing the way it should be flowing in the body, the way it can flow with integrity, the way it can flow with a strong immune system, a strong protector system, so that then the inside can really start to reveal itself, can start to really open up. So I say all this just in a desire to maybe shift our awareness into that if this is right for you, then it's great to put some real energy and attention and get serious about what's next for you in this next month. And you have the support of your book club, which might just be you and your best friend, or it might be you and the peeps at your yoga studio or your fitness club or your library or your existing book club that you've had for 10 years or whatever. And that is awesome. Whatever it is, it's like good enough, great enough, fantastic. And so from here, looking at what do I want this next month to be like? How do I want to show up for my book group, my club? Right? How do I want to do this in myself? And what's the bigger reason for it? And so what you might find is that your why is changing, the what is changing, like what you're here to do, why you're here to do it. And it's good to just take note of that now. Maybe write it down. You can talk about that in your group or with a partner and see. And now we're going to turn our attention to the next habit, which is self-massage. And self-massage, or abhyanga, it's a very simple habit of just giving yourself a massage, essentially. And a lot of people have preconceived notions of this, about it, like it has to be this elaborate ceremony. For me, it's not. Actually, more often than not these days, I do dry brushing, and I use oil a few times a week. So dry brushing, I'm just getting in touch, right? I'm just like getting in touch with my body and just moving energy in ways that feels good. This is one of my favorites. Stick my fingers in my ears, right? Pulling the lobes, just opening. And what we start to discover is that there's certain things that it's like, oh, that feels good. That makes my eyes roll back in my skull. It feels really good. And that's what it's all about. It's really about touching all parts of yourself. Like, this is your vehicle. This is your temple. This is your sacred space. Own it and know what's going on. When I started doing self-massage, when I started learning about Ayurveda, I was about 20, I think when I learned this practice, I was probably about 26 years old. Now I'm 42. And this practice for me, it really got me in touch with all the stuff I didn't like about myself. Like, I didn't feel integrated. And my hips and thighs and buttocks and places where I carried excess weight, it became so much more obvious that I was a little bit more disconnected than I had thought I was. And that was painful, disappointing, but I also could feel that the practice itself made it better. Like, the practice itself made me more in touch, made me more integrated. And I've seen this so often with people that are touch averse, that they're repelled from this practice. They don't want to do this practice at all. If that's you, just follow my suggestions in this chapter and, start with dry brushing. Don't get all messy with the oil. Like, that can come later. That's a more graduate school level of abhyanga. And for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, this practice is so yummy, I love it, and I would rather do this than the exercise or the, early or later dinner, like, this is what sparks you up. Like, awesome. Like, share that with your group, share what's going on in your self-care practice and why this is awesome. For many people, this actually becomes a keystone habit. For many women, it does. It's their time to really directly nourish themselves with their own hands. The hands energetically are an extension from the heart. And there's so much power. There's so many nadis or acupressure points that end in the hands. And when we use this amazing intelligence and sensitivity in our hands and we redirect that energy inward towards ourselves, we become more integrated. And it's a great practice too for those of us who have cravings, and it's hard to not follow those cravings, whether it's for too much food or alcohol or workaholism or just being overextended in our calendar, like whatever it might be, right? That this practice actually starts to build our integrity, bring us home. And what we find then is that our cravings will be lessened, because those cravings are often created by a pattern that's not in sync with the pattern of self-massage. So as this new pattern gets stronger, the old ones, they just start to fall away. And that's, brings me back to that behavioral science teaching of yes and that comes from improv, from the world of acting, of, I love in improv how on stage or in a little group when you're just practicing improv, like someone gives you something and you don't say no. You're not allowed to say no, because no just brings the energy down and it deflates it. Instead you say like, oh yeah, and then you do something with it. Right? And so what does that mean in your own experience here? Like, where is your yes and what's next?